2. The invisible energy thieves in your life. Energy doesn't just disappear. It gets taken, slowly, quietly, and often without permission. Look around your life. There are subtle forces constantly pulling from your mental and emotional reserves, negative environments, people who only call when they need something, conversations that leave you feeling worse instead of better, endless scrolling that overstimulates your mind but leaves you empty, the pressure to always be on, always available, always productive. These are energy thieves. And unlike physical work, they don't leave obvious signs. You won't see sweat or sore muscles. Instead, you feel it as mental fog, irritability, lack of motivation, and emotional heaviness. One of the biggest drains? Unresolved thoughts, the things you keep replaying in your mind, the argument you never finished, the decision you're avoiding, the fear you won't confront. These don't just sit quietly in the background, they consume energy every single day. Then there's comparison. Watching others succeed, scrolling through curated lives, measuring your worth against unrealistic standards, that quiet voice that says, "You're behind." That voice is expensive, it costs you energy, and you pay for it daily. 450 words engaging right now for USA Language 2. The invisible energy thieves in your life, expanded energy, doesn't just disappear. It's not something that fades randomly or runs out for no reason. More often than not, it's being taken from you, bit by bit, moment by moment, by things you don't even realize are costing you. That's what makes it so dangerous. If you ran a mile, you'd expect to feel tired. If you worked a 12-hour shift, the exhaustion would make sense. But these drains, they're subtle, quiet, easy to overlook. And because you don't see them clearly, you don't protect yourself from them. Take a closer look at your daily life. Think about the environments you spend time in. Are they supportive, calm, and energizing, or tense, negative, and mentally exhausting? Being in a space where there's constant stress, criticism, or pressure can slowly wear you down without you even noticing it happening. Then there are people. Not everyone in your life is intentionally draining you, but some interactions leave you feeling lighter while others leave you feeling depleted. The friend who only reaches out when they need something. The coworker who constantly complains. The conversations that turn into emotional weight you didn't ask to carry. You might not think much of it in the moment, but over time, it adds up. And then there's the digital world. Endless scrolling feels harmless, almost relaxing. But it's often the opposite. Your brain is being flooded with information, comparisons, opinions, and noise. You're consuming constantly, but rarely feeling fulfilled. Instead of recharging, you walk away feeling distracted, restless, and oddly empty. It's not rest, it's overstimulation. Another major energy thief is the pressure to always be on, always available, always productive, always responding, showing up, keeping up. There's this invisible expectation that you should never slow down, and if you do, you're falling behind. That pressure alone can drain you before you even start your day. But one of the biggest drains doesn't come from outside at all. It comes from within. Unresolved thoughts, the argument you keep replaying, the decision you've been avoiding, the fear you push aside but never actually face. These don't just disappear because you ignore them. They stay active in the background, quietly consuming your mental energy every single day. It's like having dozens of apps open on your phone. You might not be using them, but they're still draining the battery. And then there's comparison. You see someone else succeeding, achieving, moving forward, and suddenly, your own progress feels smaller. You start measuring your life against carefully curated versions of someone else's reality. And in that moment, a quiet voice shows up. You're behind. That voice doesn't just affect your confidence, it drains your energy. It pulls your focus away from your own path. 5. Reclaiming your energy is reclaiming your life. Once you start protecting your energy, something interesting happens. you don't just feel less tired, you feel more like yourself. Clarity comes back. Motivation feels natural again. Small things stop overwhelming you. You don't need constant stimulation to feel okay, because your energy is no longer leaking in 100 different directions. You become more selective, more intentional, less reactive. And here's the truth most people don't realize. Your energy is your most valuable resource, not time, not money, energy. Because without energy, time doesn't matter. You won't use it well, and money won't fix it. You'll still feel empty. But when your energy is strong, everything changes. You think better, you act better, you live better. So the next time you say, "I'm tired," pause for a moment. Ask yourself, am I truly tired, or is something draining me? That question alone can change everything. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. And once you stop the drain, you don't just survive your days, you actually start living them again. 400 words engaging right no 5. Reclaiming your energy is reclaiming your life, expanded. Once you start protecting your energy, even in small intentional ways, something shifts. At first, it's subtle. You just feel a little lighter, a little clearer. But over time, that small shift turns into something bigger. You realize you're not just less tired, you're more yourself again, that version of you that felt focused, motivated, and present. It starts coming back. Clarity returns. Decisions don't feel as overwhelming. You're not second-guessing everything or mentally stuck in the same loops. Your mind feels quieter, more stable, and motivation? It no longer feels forced. You're not dragging yourself through the day, trying to push through every little task. Instead, you naturally feel more willing to act. Things that once felt heavy begin to feel manageable again. Even small things change. You don't get irritated as easily. You don't feel drained by every interaction. You don't need constant noise, music, videos, scrolling, just to feel okay. There's a sense of calm that starts to replace that restless, always-on feeling. Why? Because your energy isn't leaking anymore. Before, it was being pulled in 100 different directions, by distractions, by overthinking, by unnecessary obligations, by things that didn't actually deserve your attention. Now, you're holding on to it. You're directing it instead of losing it. That's where everything changes. You become more selective with your time, more intentional with your choices. You pause before reacting. You choose what deserves your energy and what doesn't. And in doing that, you take control back. Here's the truth most people overlook. Your energy is your most valuable resource, not time, not money, energy. Because you can have all the time in the world, but if you're drained, you won't use it well. You'll procrastinate, avoid, or simply not have the strength to do what matters. And money? It can make life easier in some ways, but it doesn't fix internal exhaustion. You can still feel empty, overwhelmed, or disconnected, no matter how much you have. But when your energy is strong, everything improves. You think more clearly. You make better decisions. You show up differently in your relationships. You handle challenges without feeling completely depleted. You don't just function, you actually live. So the next time you catch yourself saying, "I'm tired," pause. Don't brush it off so quickly. Ask yourself honestly, am I truly tired, or is something draining me? That one question creates awareness, and awareness is where change begins, because once you recognize the drain, you can start to stop it. And when you stop it, you don't just survive your days anymore. You finally start living them. How to protect your energy without changing your entire life. Expanded. The answer isn't to quit your job, cut everyone off, or disappear from your responsibilities. That kind of extreme reset might sound appealing in moments of burnout, but it's not realistic, and more importantly, it's not necessary. Protecting your energy doesn't require a complete life overhaul. It starts with smaller shifts that change how you move through your day. The first step is awareness. Most people go through their routines on autopilot. Conversations happen, time gets spent, energy gets used, but there's no real check-in. You don't stop to ask, how did that actually make me feel? Start there. Notice what drains you. Pay attention after interactions. Do you feel lighter or heavier? After scrolling on your phone for an hour, do you feel relaxed or restless? After finishing a task, do you feel satisfied or completely empty? These small observations matter more than you think. They act as a filter, helping you recognize where your energy is going and whether it's worth the cost. Once you see it clearly, the next step is boundaries. Not harsh defensive walls, but intentional limits. You don't have to respond to every message the moment it comes in. You don't have to engage in every debate or explain your choices to people who don't respect them. You don't have to say yes just because it feels easier in the moment. Every automatic yes comes with a hidden cost. It takes time. It takes attention. And most importantly, it takes energy you may not have to give. Learning to pause before you commit, even for a second, can change how much you give away without realizing it. And then comes something most people misunderstand: recovery. What feels like rest isn't always real rest. Watching videos, scrolling endlessly, or distracting yourself for hours might feel like a break. But it often just numbs your mind instead of restoring it. You're occupied, but not recharged. Real recovery is different. It's quieter, sometimes even uncomfortable at first. It might look like sitting in silence without reaching for your phone, taking a walk with no music, no podcasts, just your thoughts, writing things down to clear mental clutter, letting your mind slow down instead of constantly feeding it stimulation. That discomfort you feel in those moments? That's not a bad sign. It's a sign you're not used to stillness. You're used to noise, constant input, constant distraction, constant movement. Stillness feels unfamiliar, even unsettling. But it's also where your mind finally gets the space to reset. That's where your energy begins to come back. Not in the noise, not in the distraction, but in the quiet moments you usually avoid. You say you're tired, but what if you're not? What if the problem isn't that you need more sleep, but that your energy is being drained every single day without you even realizing it? Think about it. You wake up after a full night's rest, but still feel heavy, unmotivated, distracted, off. That's not normal tiredness. That's your energy leaking. Through stress, overthinking, toxic conversations, constant scrolling, and the pressure to always be on. And the worst part, you've gotten used to it. You've been calling it life when it's actually burnout in disguise, because real tiredness goes away with rest. But drained energy, that sticks with you. It follows you into your day, into your work, into your relationships, until everything starts to feel harder than it should. But here's the truth. Your energy is your power. And the moment you start protecting it, everything changes. You think clearer. You feel lighter. You start showing up as the version of yourself you thought you lost. So before you say, "I'm just tired," ask yourself this one question. Am I really tired? Or is something draining me? Because that question might just change your life. 1. The lie we tell ourselves about being tired. Expanded. You say you're tired. Almost everyone does. It slips into conversation so easily, like a default explanation for everything that feels off. Long day at work, too many responsibilities, not enough sleep. It sounds reasonable. It sounds normal. But what if that explanation is incomplete? Because real tiredness is straightforward. When your body is physically exhausted, it asks for one thing: rest. You sleep, you recharge, and eventually you feel better. That's how it's supposed to work. Yet, how often has it not worked? You go to bed early, maybe even proud of yourself for finally getting those full 8 hours. You wake up expecting to feel refreshed, but instead there's this heaviness. Your body might be rested, but your mind feels foggy. Your motivation is nowhere to be found. Even simple tasks feel like they require effort you don't have. That's the moment most people ignore. They shrug it off and say, "I guess I'm just still tired." But you're not. What you're feeling isn't just physical fatigue. It's deeper, more subtle, and far more draining over time. It's the kind of exhaustion that sleep alone can't fix. We've been taught to treat all exhaustion the same way. If you feel worn out, the answer must be more rest, right? But that mindset misses something important. Not all exhaustion comes from doing too much physically. Sometimes it comes from what's happening internally. There's a real difference between your body being tired and your energy being drained. Physical tiredness is like running a marathon. You know why you're exhausted and you know how to recover. But drained energy feels different. It's quieter, harder to pinpoint, and often confusing. When your energy is being drained, rest doesn't restore you the way it should. You wake up already carrying a weight you can't quite explain. The day hasn't even started, and you already feel behind. Tasks that used to feel simple now seem overwhelming. Conversations feel like effort. Even things you once enjoyed, hobbies, social time, small pleasures, start to feel like obligations you have to push yourself through. That's not normal tiredness. And the tricky part is how gradually it happens. There's no clear moment where everything changes. It builds slowly, day by day, until it becomes your new normal. You adapt to it without realizing you've lost something important along the way: your energy. It's easy to assume the problem is that you're doing too much, and sometimes that's true. But often, it's not about how much you're doing. It's about what you're allowing. What you're allowing into your time, into your mind, into your emotional space. Because energy doesn't just disappear. It gets taken by stress, by overthinking, by environments that don't support you, and by habits that quietly drain more than they give. So the next time you catch yourself saying, "I'm just tired," pause for a second. Ask yourself a better question. 3. Why you feel exhausted. Even when you do nothing. You've had days where you didn't do much physically, but still felt drained. That's confusing, right? It shouldn't be, because energy isn't only spent through action, it's spent through attention. Every time your mind jumps from one thought to another, every time you worry, overthink, or mentally rehearse something that hasn't happened yet, you're using energy. Think about how often your brain is running in the background, planning, analyzing, doubting, remembering, imagining worst-case scenarios. That's work. And unlike physical work, it doesn't stop when you sit down. In fact, silence often makes it louder. Another major drain is emotional suppression. When you ignore how you feel, when you push things down instead of processing them, you don't eliminate the emotion, you carry it. And carrying emotional weight is exhausting. That's why you can spend an entire day resting, but still feel depleted. Because your mind never rested, your emotions never settled. You weren't recharging, you were just paused in a draining cycle. 400 words engaging right no. 3. Why you feel exhausted. Even when you do nothing, expanded. You've had those days. No intense work, no heavy physical activity, nothing that should logically wear you out. Maybe you stayed home, took it easy, even told yourself, I'm finally going to rest today. And yet by the end of it, you feel just as drained, sometimes even more. It doesn't make sense on the surface, but it actually makes perfect sense when you understand one thing. Energy isn't only spent through action, it's spent through attention. Your mind is one of the biggest consumers of your energy, and it rarely ever switches off. Even when your body is still, your thoughts are moving, jumping from one idea to another, replaying conversations, anticipating problems, worrying about things that haven't happened and may never happen. That constant mental activity, that's work. You might not see it. You might not even fully notice it. But your brain is running in the background all the time, planning, analyzing, doubting, remembering, imagining worst-case scenarios. And unlike physical work, there's no clear stop button. Sitting down doesn't stop it. Lying in bed doesn't stop it. In fact, silence often makes it louder. When there are no distractions, your thoughts become more noticeable and sometimes more overwhelming. So even on a day when you do nothing, your mind may be doing everything. That's why you feel exhausted. Another major reason is something most people don't talk about enough: emotional suppression. When you ignore how you feel, when you brush things off, avoid difficult emotions, or tell yourself to just move on, you're not actually getting rid of those feelings, you're carrying them. Unprocessed emotions don't disappear. They stay with you, sitting quietly beneath the surface, adding weight to your mental and emotional state. And carrying that weight takes energy. It's like holding something heavy all day. You might get used to it, but it still drains you over time. That's why a full day of rest doesn't always leave you feeling restored. Because real rest isn't just about stopping your body, it's about calming your mind and releasing what you've been holding inside. If your thoughts are still racing and your emotions are still unresolved, you're not truly recharging, you're just pausing. And when you pause without processing, the drain doesn't stop, it continues quietly in the background. That's the cycle most people get stuck in, not because they're lazy, not because they're weak, but because they've never been taught that real energy loss doesn't always come from what you do. Sometimes it comes from what you carry. So now you know. It's not always about doing more. It's about protecting what you already have, your energy. Because every time you ignore what drains you, every time you say yes when you mean no, every time you distract instead of recharge, you give a piece of it away. And over time, that adds up. But the good news? You can take it back. One choice at a time, one boundary at a time, one moment of awareness at a time. You don't need a perfect life to feel better. You just need to stop leaking your energy into things that don't deserve it. And when you do, you won't just feel less exhausted, you'll feel in control again, more focused, more present, more like you. So starting today, be more aware of where your energy goes. Protect it, respect it, value it, because when you take your energy back, you take your life back. And that's where everything begins.